So some people really want to show you what an arsehole they can be because they think, oh, he's a founder, he needs to be ruthless, right? Some people will show you that they don't have the time to learn new skills, and they haven't learned a new skill in 4 years. But you don't ask it directly, you can just find it out.
Today, I'm joined by Paul Sampson, the co-founder and CEO of Licked. You've been in the industry, music industry, TV industry, advertising industry for over 20 years.
Yeah.
Licked is a revolutionary platform working with content creators to get the correct licensing for their music, rather than me going into song and verse of how you've created the largest database of music available. Let's hear it in your own words.
Okay. Thanks for having me. So Licked is the world's first mainstream music licensing platform for content creators and brands. I'll talk about that later on. We have a new platform launching for brands to use. But essentially, there's a problem using mainstream music on social platforms, particularly on YouTube. There's something called copyright claims. So YouTube recognizes your audio and presumes that you've infringed copyright, which is fine if it's you or me and we don't earn money off of YouTube yet. But if you earn money off of YouTube, that copyright claim means that you earn nothing from that video. And obviously, the unintended consequence of music rights holders wanting greater visibility and control over their copyright on these platforms has meant that they've precluded themselves from working with the only demographic on YouTube that has the will, the means, and the audience to be able to compensate and increase the production values of their content significantly and repeatedly. And so essentially, there's a new media available for music licensing. The music industry is too fragmented to solve for that use case on their own. And like all innovation in the music industry, we as a third party have provided it. So think Spotify, but for content creators to be able to find and legally use the biggest artists in the world in their videos.
Cool. Makes sense. So what we are talking about is a content creator like a Mr. Beast wanting to use a Coldplay number on his YouTube channel, which he makes a lot of money from. If he didn't use a platform like Licked, he would potentially get all of that money taken away from him. He would get all that money taken away from him if he didn't have that proper licensing. So he could do the best video ever, hundreds and thousands of views, puts 3 seconds of Yellow by Coldplay in there, and all that money gets taken away.
He does hundreds of millions of views. Yes, that's exactly it. And if anyone's watching from the music industry, the response I get is, well, presumably you're going to give me less money for him using the song than if he just used it and I claimed his video and took all of it, right? And the answer is yes, that's true. And that's why he doesn't use it, right? And that's the point, is that the music industry is really good at a couple of things. One is monetizing scarcity, which is what they've done traditionally. And everything I asked them to do is democratize and liberate assets, and that's why it's taken so long to get Licked where it is. The other one is being able to walk into a dark room wearing a blindfold and still manage to find a gun and shoot itself straight in the foot. They've been slow to adopt innovation. They're typically just behind the Amish when it comes to like new technology, right? And I get it, but that's why we've come along and so actually, if we act as the arbiter or the middleman in this process and create that marketplace, we can solve for all of the rights holders in the industry and for the content creators. So Licked has today over 10,000 labels and publishers signed to it. That's a lot of contracts.
Yeah.
And as a result, there were over 13.5 million songs delivered to us, only 1.5 of which are live and available. The rest, we're signing more and more contracts every day so we can clear that backlog of 12 million songs. But it wasn't an easy journey getting rights holders to understand the vacuum, to make them understand that it wouldn't cannibalize their existing revenue on YouTube, and to understand the value of content creators, and that this wasn't a fad, that this was going to be television for Gen Z, millennials, and Gen Alpha. So, yeah, it's been a long road.
Yeah, 100%. You must be one of the largest billers to DocuSign of any other business out there.
Yeah, actually, it all happens on a third-party platform now. In the early days, I would go and sign every contract, right? Typical business development process. I would call a small label. We started with the smallest labels and built up trust and then participation and then went from there. Because today, people like Universal and Warner and BMG are all signed to Licked. But we started with labels you won't have heard of.
Sure.
And I would go door to door and pitch them on the phone and then turn up at their office and then demo the software, demo the platform, and then physically sign a contract. And for the first, I think, 275 contracts, we did it that way.
Wow.
And then the next 9,700, whatever it is, have all been done through a third-party platform. That scales much more quickly that way. Obviously.
Yeah, 100%. Okay, so let's go to the origin story of Licked. So the picture is 2015. YouTube is becoming the monstrosity that it is today, the giant that it is today. Over 1 billion users, sending out ad revenues of $5.5 billion every single year.
Yeah.
The birth of how we digest entertainment, education, everything was happening on YouTube like it is today. As you said, the mainstream way of digesting that content was through user-generated content. And you saw this problem.
Yeah. So basically, my background is that I've been putting music in films, in trailers, in TV shows, and on adverts since 2005. And that is called sync licensing. It's the synchronization of music to picture, shortened to sync licensing. So we would get calls from film studios or producers of films or TV shows or ads, and they would say, we need a piece of music that does X for this piece of content. Right? It needs to achieve this emotion. And you would pitch the catalogue that you represented creatively. And if you were successful in that pitch, then you would then negotiate the license fee on behalf of the artist, the label, and then the publishers who represent the writers of that song. It's a really long, expensive, protracted process that can involve 6, 10, 15 multinational companies. Now, if you're in film and TV and advertising, you're set up to do that. You've learned over hundreds of years that you need to do this, and you've got teams of people to contract it for you, and probably 6 months lead time. But if you look at film, TV, and advertising, as verticals, they're just big production companies. And by the time, 10 years into me doing this, I did it in New York and LA and London, you realize that all of these verticals are just massive production companies. And what is a production company? It's a producer, it's a cameraman, it's a camera, it's an editing suite, an editing hardware, and an editor, right? And a researcher. And then you've got everything you need to go and shoot. Now, that costs hundreds, if not thousands of pounds a day. But over the last 15 years, we've seen all of that democratized to the living room. I get iMovie for free on my Apple laptop, right? And I can get reasonably cheaply Adobe Premiere or DaVinci Resolve or any of these other editing softwares, Final Cut. Similarly, 10 years ago, my home camera would have shot reasonably well, and I could have put it on a little tripod, the same camera I took my holiday photos on, and I could upload to YouTube. Now you can do it on your phone in 4K. So all of the resources of production companies got democratized to the living room. And in 2015, I sat around and thinking, the only thing that hasn't democratized in line with those things I just mentioned in the production world is what I'm doing. So if user-generated content is the future of production, and by that point it was the fastest growing production sector in the world, then it follows that it's going to need an at-scale solution for music licensing, because they don't have to contact anyone to shoot. Why should they have to contact anyone to license music? And okay, the fees are going to be significantly lower than they are for a film or a TV show or an advert. But the number of licenses is going to be significantly higher. So this needs a new revenue model. It needs a micro licensing approach. And then I started looking at YouTube. And I thought, well, how are they using music? And I saw that many of them weren't using good music, famous music. And I asked why, and the response came Content ID and copyright claims. So YouTube has a piece of software called Content ID. It recognizes music, mainstream music, in your video. And because there's nowhere in the world to acquire all of the necessary rights from the multiple parties involved in every song, they just go, well, we know you haven't got the rights. There's nowhere to go and get the rights. So you've infringed copyright. And the system puts a copyright claim on your video. And that copyright claim diverts all of the money you would have earned from that video away from you and towards the music industry, or the part of the music industry who owned that copyright, who were infringed. And so when I set out to do this, and I thought we need something like Spotify, but for content creators, I thought, well, we can't just get the rights and then license them to a content creator and leave them hanging when they go through that process on YouTube. We have to provide a solution for that as well. And so before we even approached the music industry, a friend of mine that was a developer and myself, we took all the YouTube certifications, right? You can take an exam in the CMS, in the API, and in Content ID. And between those three areas of knowledge and systems, we plotted a path that meant, well, we can build software that if it connected here and if it did that here, we could build a world where Content ID, YouTube's audio recognition system, could tell the difference between a legally licensed piece of music and all of the infringement. So it turned the process from guilty without recourse to prove your innocence to innocent until proven guilty. And that changed the game. And then we were able to go to the music industry and say, look at the vacuum you've created at the very top of YouTube. Look at the solution we've built to enable the revenue. And they said, get out of the room. Because that's what they do. But over years, we've won hearts and minds and trust, and now we have the biggest artists and labels in the world on the platform.
Amazing. So effectively, to make it very clear for the everyday person that is saying they want to build a YouTube channel, and of course, I want that Dua Lipa number on my YouTube channel. If you are looking to create any ad revenue from your video, you need the proper licensing for that Dua Lipa number. You could hit an absolute viral video which could make you many, many thousands and millions, etc. But if you don't have the right licensing, you may have shot yourself in the foot before you've even started. And that's exactly what Lick does.
It's 100% correct. 80%, this shocked me, 80% of our customers are YouTube channels that don't earn money from YouTube. But what's happened over the last few years is that they've become educated. Now, if you're ambitious as a YouTuber, you will say, if you're smart, you'll say to yourself, let's say in 2 years' time, I get big enough that I enter the YouTube partner program and I can start earning from my videos. If I have acted illegally on every video, let's say it's one a week, 104 videos over the last 2 years, they'll have copyright claims on them already. And then when I enter the YouTube partner program, I can't monetize the catalog of videos that I created that got me big enough to start earning. Now I do my next video and I can earn from that video. But now I've got one video out of 105 that I can monetize. Whereas if I'd acted legally the whole way through, and if I'd used Licked, I can now on that day monetize 105 of 105 videos, right? And every view on each video that I get new subscribers, and they say, oh, I like this video, I like this guy or this girl, I'm going to go back through their video catalog. Well, you want to be earning from that.
100%.
It makes no sense. And the good news about how we do it at Licked is that we scale our rate card. So if you used the platform today, right, you told me that your YouTube channel is small, right? Would you say you're averaging fewer than 50,000 views per video?
Yes.
So any song on Licked would cost you £6. It's not going to break the bank. But if Mr. Beast used that same song today, the same one you picked, it would cost him four figures, well into four figures, because his ability to pay, the earning potential of his channel, and the exposure of the music, the potential oversaturation, has a different price tag. And that's how we've been able to attract and convert and retain customers.
And it's the future as well, right? So like if Mr. Beast goes and releases a video with an indie number from an East London band that no one's ever heard of, or maybe a small niche amount of people have heard of, their sales, their profile it's gonna go through the roof.
Absolutely. But that you can't make that case to Coldplay or Dua Lipa.
Of course.
Right? What they will say is the more I make this available, potentially the less I'll be able to charge for the next Mercedes campaign, right? Because if everyone's using it, then what's so special about it? That's what I mean when I talk about the music industry monetizing scarcity. Typically, the music industry would just say, our job is to field all the calls and say no to everyone until the biggest number is said, right? And I'm asking them to say yes to everyone, right? At the lowest possible numbers. If you think about this, right? Let's just talk about creators on YouTube that can earn money. To earn money on YouTube, you have to be in the YouTube Partner Program. To get in the YouTube Partner Program, you need to achieve two things: 1,000 subscribers or more, and 4,000 hours of watch time. The number of channels with over 1,000 subscribers is 10 million, and it grows 25% year on year. So it'll be 12.5 million next year, right? Those people, now 3 million of that 10 already earn money, but the other 7 million, sorry, I just hit the mic. The other 7 million are just about to. They've already achieved what the 1,000 subscriber number. So that means they're probably 75% of the way to hitting the 4,000 hours. Each of those 10 million channels on average will publish 5 videos a month, 12 months a year. So you're at 600 million licensing opportunities, and 84% of all videos on YouTube use some form of music. What I was saying to the music industry was they're using music. They're just not using yours. And you look around at these stock music companies who have very small catalogs, very cheaply acquired, although that's not always true. But low-level, sound-alike, elevator, music, whatever you want to call it. And some of them have got valuations of over $1 billion. $1 billion. The entire music industry is worth about 47 billion at this point, right, in revenue. Not. I mean, if you sold the music industry, it'd be worth more than that. But I mean, in annual revenue, if one stock music company is valued at over $1 billion, you have to look at why. What have they done that we can't? And the answer is they've created a consumer-facing or creator-facing solution.
The royalty-free music.
Yeah.
How many people that have put together a video, that are in, that elite club really of those that are in the creator program at YouTube, have them or others that want to be in that have gone into their Google search and gone royalty-free music and clicked on the top, search.
I must tell you, that phrase really winds me up.
Okay.
There is no reason why anyone on any of these platforms needs royalty-free music. Not because we exist, but the reason that any of these platforms say royalty-free is to attract TV broadcasters. A content creator on YouTube is never responsible for the royalties. Never. What happened was the most successful royalty-free company was also the first one to point a creator-facing solution at content creators. And because content creators wanted to be copyright claims free, and the platform that read royalty free enabled that for them, they've associated one with the other. Royalty free means if you own Cash in the Attic or Loose Women, right? Whatever the piece of content you're creating in the UK as a production company, and you want to sell that content to an international broadcaster, you get to say to them, it's fully packaged. You're not even going to have to pay royalties on the music. It's the only reason it says that. So what I'm saying to you is there are stock music companies that are not royalty free that offer you exactly the same solution and are no worse for you than the royalty free ones and might be better quality. So you should look at them as well.
Yes, so interesting. But like those one track that everyone's been using could be worth millions.
Yeah.
Which is actually crazy.
Yeah.
So we mentioned the big brands, the big boys that you've been working on for a number of years to get into your way of thinking and frankly the future of this industry. You partner with a couple of them, Warner Music and
they have a small stakeholding in the business. So that's what you mean.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. You got Epic Games as well. They're small,
as investors.
Yeah, small investor into the business. There's one thing getting them on board to your way of thinking. There's another way of getting them onto the cap table. Yeah. So how the hell did that happen?
Well, once you convince the music industry, and bear in mind, when you're going to the music industry and asking for their rights, it's one thing. If I started a competitor to Spotify today, I could get a deal in a few weeks. They know the business model. They want more people competing with Spotify so they can negotiate harder with Spotify. The streaming contracts have been around 15 years. Done. You're licensed, right? If you go and say, here's something you've never granted before, and here's why I need you to do it, like Spotify did 15 years ago, it takes years to get your deal done. And that conversation goes through 10, 15 departments at the label and the publisher. They all have to sign off and they'll all have objections. And then eventually you get up to the board. When the board of a multinational business is going to sign off a new technology, a new grant of rights, and a new commercial model, if they're going to say yes to it, then there's a likelihood the next thing they'll say is, if you achieve success off our back, we want a piece of it. Right? And so they'll hedge their bets by saying, when are you next raising money? And they'll put, potentially, not always, but they might say, let's have a conversation about your funding. So that's how that happened. With Universal, that was what happened with Warner. With Universal, because essentially they've agreed at that point you're doing something innovative, and they're partnering with you, so we want to be part of the upside. With Universal, it was different. They incubated us in their innovation incubator called Abbey Road Red, and that comes with sort of a quid pro quo. I find that really difficult to say. Well, we're going to help you accelerate your business, right? And you're going to access to lots of smart people within the music industry. The risk on our behalf is that you take all of that access and that knowledge and that learnings, and then you go off and make millions, and we don't get anything out of it.
Sure.
And so there's something that happens there. With Epic Games, it was really different. I never saw that coming.
This episode is sponsored by Opus. Opus brings entrepreneurs together to create opportunity through power of connection. Opus is a curated community for business builders who understand that relationships are the backbone of business and success. If you are an entrepreneur, founder, business builder, laser focused on a mission, Opus could be for you too. To find out more, go to joinopus.org. Now back to the show. Now, Epic Games, for those who don't know, produce video games such as Fortnite, become a giant really over the last decade, I suppose, really.
Absolutely enormous. It's really interesting. So when I said before we had to solve the copyright claims issue with Content ID and the CMS and the API, the software we built that creates the innocent till proven guilty decision-making process, we call Vouch. We call it Vouch because it vouches for our customers.
Makes sense.
Right? And essentially, Epic Games came to us in 2020 and said, can you tell us about how you're doing this? Because we have a use case that it might be useful for. Okay. So in 2019, Epic Games did something called, this is the first in-game concert, and it was with an artist called Marshmallow.
Yeah.
There are content creators that are also Fortnite gamers, and Fortnite works with them and says, you've got a big streaming audience, here's a new skin, a new emote, some new gameplay, a new battle royale. You live stream it and the masses will engage and adopt. Well, they asked that cohort of their massive user base, a small number of that user base, just to help promote the concert and share content around it and make it engaging. And every single one of them got a copyright claim. Multiple copyright claims. Because all the music concert is full of music. And so they said, look, if we're going to continue doing this, can you make this a better user experience for our affiliates? And so we worked out solutions with Vouch that mean that they can switch it on and switch it off. And we did a decent amount of revenue with them. And they eventually came to us and said, well, we should invest in the business. So we're adding value to your company. We should own some of it. And so they invested in the company about 3.5 years ago.
It's actually crazy if you think about it. The Epic Games Fortnite owners have gone to their user base, UGC, sort of community, and said, please promote a feature of our video game. Those that do know Fortnite will know those music concerts, and those that maybe know Marshmallow. They've gone off and gone, yes, we're happy to help. And then they've been slapped with a lawsuit. Yeah. Not exactly how they thought that relationship was going to go down.
Well, exactly. And if you're Fortnite, they've done really well at Epic, right? There's such smart people and such smart teams. So imagine, it's a company that's centered around innovation. They recognize a lot of our audience is going to be watching this live event in the game, but also there's an almost equal amount that will be watching it via their favorite streamer. So how do we cater for them? And how do we make sure that the streamers who are our mavens, they are our rebroadcasters? Yeah. How do we make sure they're incentivized? And that's not by creating content that they can never monetize. And I think that's really forward thinking and progressive by a company like Epic Games to understand the value of the content creators to the adoption of the game and the increased engagement within it.
That's amazing. So a couple of big partnerships, your, of course, hard work and your team's hard work. You're now 7,000 monthly users plus of the platform. How are you acquiring these? Because I see a problem, right?
Yeah.
So the problem is people are utilizing your service. They are uploading their video to YouTube. And we use the Coldplay example. It's a Coldplay number. Nowhere does it say licked. So how are we getting the exposure for the business?
Well, you're slightly wrong there.
Okay.
So as part of our agreement with our customers, like most music, even the royalty-free companies you use, most of them will say you need to credit us in the video description. Now, the video description, you can only read the first 20 words, right? Well, on mobile, even on desktop. But if you click see more, there's typically their affiliate links and all the resources they use.
The chapters of the video.
Exactly. And we're in there. Now, you're right.
Right at
it's
the bottom.
quite below the line, but it is credited. And that does provide some of our new customers. How do we attract customers outside of that? So the three main areas. A, we want to be SEO optimized, right? And all search optimization. Then we do a lot of paid ads. But we also work with content creators, sponsored influencer marketing. Now, interestingly, we have a problem with that. We had a problem with it, which is we all know influencer marketing, but it's typically a resource for big direct-to-consumer brands who have an audience of potentially 7 billion, right? I mean, you look at Who Gives a Crap, which is the new toilet roll brand, right? Like everyone in the world is a potential customer of Who Gives a Crap. It makes sense to speak to the mavens and the influencers who have the biggest audiences, because every one of the 2 million people that watch X creator
goes to the bathroom every day.
Goes to the bathroom. My customer is the influencer themselves. I can't go to Zoella, and I'm going back a bit now, but if I said to Zoella, what does it cost to sponsor one of your videos? She'll give me the price that L'Oreal get. Now, every one of her users might buy a product from L'Oreal, but how many of her audience make videos? Very few.
Limited, yeah.
Yeah. So we need to work with influencers that influence influencers.
Which must be pretty niche.
It's very niche. And even then, a creator-dense audience might be 5% of your audience, right? So if we can determine that more than 5% of your audience are other content creators, you're perfect for us. So there are, interestingly, the biggest creators in the world now have full-time editors. You said before we started recording, I used to do everything myself, and now I have a team to do these podcasts for me, right? Well, so does Mr. Beast, so does Logan Paul, so does Jake Paul, so does Airac and Chris MD, right? Those editors are now attracting their own followers.
Absolutely.
And those editors' videos are about how I make the content great. So it's great to partner with the channels that I just mentioned, but it's probably more pertinent for us to partner with the editors of those channels if they have their own YouTube channels. Because I'm only watching Mr. Beast's editor because I want to learn how Mr. Beast makes his content so good. And it's taken us a long time to realize that and to find the people that can actually provide that value. And so we do very small amount of targeted partnerships with creators. The other thing to say is you can spend all the money in the world on that sort of activity, right? There's literally an infinite amount of money you could spend. And we don't have that. We have very small amounts of money. That might attract people, that activity, to the platform. But to convert them, you need the music. And so for the first, I said to you, it took 5-6 years to get 10,000 contracts signed. The most important ones of there are the 3 to 5 biggest labels and biggest publishers in the world, right? Up until we had those, we'd get people very excited about what we're doing. Finally, someone solved this problem. And then they would come and search for Dua Lipa or Justin Bieber or Bruno Mars or Coldplay, and they wouldn't be there. And then we would churn the user. And so marketing became so expensive. The answer to the question is, on top of all of that, working out where we spend our marketing money, we had to convince the labels to give us the music. Because and the good news was I was able to go into them and say, look how many people have typed in the name of your artists. And this is, on average, what we make per customer per month. and you times those two together and then times it by the amount of artists that label represents, whose figures you have, whose data on missed search you have, and it suddenly becomes a compelling business case. And that data-led business development approach changed the game from us. And about 3 years ago, we signed the major publishers as well as the major labels, and that unlocked the most valuable catalogue that was in our pipeline. And so you spend the money, you work with, say, Mr. Beast's editor, he sends X amount of new customers to your platform who watched the video and thought, oh, that's a good idea, I trust him, I'll go and check it out. And now you've got the artists there that go, oh, holy shit, I can use my favourite act, and then they convert and they become users.
Makes complete sense.
Yeah, you have to have that cycle in place and have all the bits in place. And we didn't for very, very long. So we've only been commercial. We've only been monetizing the catalogue for about 2.5 years now. But we're already doing multiples of millions in revenue. But I have very patient, thankfully, investors, some of them, that have understood what we were trying to achieve and stayed with us long enough to get the deals done to eventually see a return on that. It's not easy. A lot of them aren't as patient as one might like. And I don't blame them. Who wants an 8-year return on their money, right?
Yeah. So let's go about that. So I guess there's going to be a number of founders listening to this episode that go, I have a great idea, or I believe in something, I'm passionate about something, but I know that it's community-based or data-based, platform-led, product-led, all of these buzzwords and key phrases that just means that I probably won't be able to monetize. I'm a smart person. I won't be able to monetize my business for, let's say, 2 years. But I also need money to get it off the ground. It's effectively what happened with you, right? So you basically said, I need to go establish these partnerships, these brand deals. I need to get the actual music. I need to find the content creators and an acquisition model that works. Basically spending a load of money before I then actually start making money.
Yeah. What's
your advice to basically starting those investor conversations?
First of all, it's really difficult. And I can't tell you I had a plan. My advice today is be transparent up front with the investors, because bringing on the wrong investor who doesn't understand that, or you've hoodwinked by saying we can get into revenue immediately and it's going to take off within 6 months, you're kicking the can down the road, and you're going to have a very unhappy investor. If you have very unhappy investors or board members, then you can find yourself pushed into situations you don't want to be in. 2, I would say, so on top of being transparent and be clear about it, because most investors, if the idea is good enough and they believe in the market adoption of it, will wait with you if you're transparent and clear. They respect it, right? 2 is there is inherent value in you as a founder, and potentially in your team and the tech you're building or the software you're thinking about, right? And so in that period between founding and monetization, there may well be customers that aren't on your core business trajectory that would pay for counsel, for early access to the software, or for you and your team's specialities to deliver something else. Now, a lot of people will say, keep focused, stay on one thing. And I agree with that. But if you've got something relatively simple you can deliver in the meantime, it starts to show your investors, well, hang on, listen, I know I said we're pre-revenue and we're not going to make any money for 2 years, but we did 100 grand this year on stuff that isn't what we're building. It's just a tangential piece of value that we've created.
Like a very small piece of proof of concept.
Correct. So I'll give you an example. In our first couple of years, there were something called MCNs, multi-channel networks, and they aggregated and or managed YouTube channels at scale.
Okay.
And a lot of them were coming to the end of their life cycle, and they were trying to monetize the content they had rights on and selling. We manage 4,000 creators, so we've got 400,000 videos. And someone like Disney might have said, well, we need not Disney. Disney doesn't need a younger audience, but let's say some kind of US TV channel that has just opened a subscription platform needs content to attract a younger audience. And so they would want to syndicate their catalog to those platforms, right? Well, they needed help either clearing the music because it had only been licensed for YouTube, right? Even if it was stock music or royalty free, and we would advise them for it. And it helped me lengthen my runway. And it would take up maybe half a day a week because my team was so skilled that we could say, Paul, we can do X amount in no time if we do an extra hour a day. And we say, okay, well, that means we can do 50, 100 grand this year, which pays for another head or extends the runway by another month, right? Doesn't do it a month these days, but yeah. So I would just think about the value that you have and how you as a founder can extract that from your team marginally, tangentially, on the periphery to either extend runway or show value to your investors.
So the bit that I really pick up on there is talent.
Yeah.
Get a really damn good team. So it's not just yourself. Hopefully you're talented as a person, right? As a founder, I know you are, Paul, but you've got 27 other employees or 27 employees that are extremely talented right now working for Licht. How the hell do you find the best talent to make that made the dream work?
Well, talent's everywhere. It's not hard to find talent. It's hard to make sure that you don't let cancers into your business. I'll tell you a quick story. I got my seed funding in end of 2016. And as we approached the end of 2018, I closed my first external round. And that gave me enough money to go from 4 of us to 12 of us. And I pooped my pants. The 3 people that I had in the business, I had worked with in some capacity before. Incredibly different people, incredibly talented, but so varied, you wouldn't imagine that we would all get along or work with each other. And I thought to myself, these 4 people, including myself, have moved mountains in 2 years. We've achieved what no one thought we could achieve. How do I make sure I'm hiring for that level of capability again? And I thought about it long and hard. And I thought, well, I need to create a set of values and a culture for the business, right? And I read all the cultural value documents of all my favorite companies, right? Airbnb and Netflix and so on and so forth. And if you read enough of these, you'll end up going, well, those should be our values, right? You write their 5 or 6 values down, then you write the next one, and the next one, the next one. And so you've got a list of 200 values, which is way too many values, right? You need a filtration system, and you need to pick 5 or 6 that you'll stick by. And then I thought, okay, well, which ones do I have? And I thought, okay, where's that going to get me? Well, that's going to get me 8 more Pauls. And no one needs 8 of me. And so I took the 10 or 15 that I really valued, and then I laid that over the 4 of us. And I thought, well, which ones do we share? And then I used that as a filtration process to put every interviewee we have through. Does that make sense?
It did. Did it work?
I believe it's worked. I think it's the best thing we've done at Licht is our culture. And you can't be perfect all the time. But we value at Licht things like explicit curiosity, something we refer to as compassionate directness, empathy, and various other values, right? And there's a way of determining in the interview process if someone has those. And it's not to ask them if they have it, because everyone would say yes. Why I should only answer yes, because what he's only asking me because he wants to know if I have it. There are ways of phrasing certain questions to get anecdotes out of people that will determine to you if they are compassionate when they need to be direct to people, or whether they're assholes when they want to be direct. And some people really want to show you what an arsehole they can be because they think, oh, he's a founder, he needs to be ruthless, right? Some people will show you that they don't have the time to learn new skills, and they haven't learned a new skill in 4 years. But you don't ask it directly. You can just find it out, right? And finding out those things and then hiring for that is really important. So you look at Brian Chesky at Airbnb or Anil Shah, the founders of Workday, they will tell you that the founders personally interviewed the first 500 employees.
It's insane.
Now, that doesn't mean they did every round of the interview, but it does mean if it's 500 employees, it means they interviewed 1,500 people, because not everyone they interviewed got a job.
Of course.
So when you think about how would they do that, what I say to my team is, I will be part of the interviewing process from interview 1 to the very end. if that person is reporting directly to me. If they're reporting directly to you, you start the process. And when you tell me you've got someone more than capable of delivering on the job, I want to do a cultural interview with them. And I will come back to you and tell you if I think that they said anything egregious or they didn't meet our standards. Because put it this way, if you allow someone into the business who is more than capable of doing the job and can deliver for you in the short term, but upsets everyone in the process, is not kind, is not compassionate, is abrupt, is arrogant, all of those things, you demotivate everyone else in the team. And now you've got a cancer in your business. And you might not find out about that cancer until two of the good people have resigned and moved on to other jobs because they didn't feel they could come and tell you because you're 2 or 3 layers above them in the management system, right? And then you go, shit, I just lost 3 good people. What's going on? And someone whispers to you at the pub. You know it's Steve.
Yeah.
Right? And you go, why didn't anyone tell me? Right? You need to cut Steve out.
Yeah. Has it happened? Have you faced the other side of that where you've realised too late or potentially...
Yes.
Okay.
But we have enough of an open communication, I would say, structure at Licht, where I will find out quite quickly if someone isn't meeting those standards, right? And I've told my team I want to know about it. It's not just something we say. Now, I might not hear it directly from that employee. I might hear it from their department head. But also, the department heads have to deal with these people if that person is managing someone. Then the rest of my SLT, my senior leadership team, is also dealing with that person, and they'll tell me. Like I said, you can't get it right all the time. You have to then have enough of a culture within the business to say, be open about it. Now, if one person tells you that, it could be malicious, it could be sabotage. If you start hearing it from multiple people, they're probably right. But for the most part, we have found that out during the cultural. I'll give you a perfect example. I asked someone, because one of our values is integrity. I said, give me an example of the last time you think you did the right thing when no one was watching or when it wasn't in your best interests. And this person thought long and hard. Now, that's okay. I understand I'm asking questions they've never been asked before.
Sure.
And in that instance, I then give them an example, right? A very small example, a very low level one, because it doesn't have to be I saved the world and everyone was asleep, right? And I gave that example, and that normally would stimulate something in them or give them an idea, and they go, oh, okay, right. And this person thought long and hard, even after I'd given the example, and said, when I was at my last company, the FD ended up having to use my terminal, my computer. And when they left, they had accidentally left my terminal logged into the company bank account, which had over £10 million in it.
Wow.
And I didn't transfer any of it to myself.
Oh, wow.
And I was like, wow. Okay. And he looked at me like he was really proud. Like, I've answered your question. And I thought to myself, this person was sailing through the interview process, through the cultural interview. I thought, well, this is a no-brainer.
Yeah.
I thought, how badly misjudged do you have to be to tell me in an interview I considered fraud, taking an act of fraud against my employer seriously? But ultimately, I decided not to. Yay me! Right? That's not a good answer.
Yeah, that's not a good answer.
So, A, it's not a good answer. B, it's even worse that you thought it was okay to tell me that. Right? And they displayed really bad judgment. And I went back to my department head and I said, I'm really sorry because I know you've been through a lengthy interviewing process. I don't think this person is fit.
Yeah.
Now, I'd rather hire someone less capable that matches our values than someone more skilled that doesn't, because you can train skills, but you cannot train values in people. And if you create enough of a good culture in your business, your team will help upskill each other naturally. They're just helping each other out. Right? So that's really important. Another example is I hired my first ever marketing director. And I said to him on day one, during the interview process, I said, if you get this job, there's a budget here for you to build out a team within 6 months. 9 months later, 30% of that team hadn't been hired. And he was panicking a bit. I hadn't realized it, right? But I would catch up with him and say, I haven't got someone for that role. So don't worry about it. Just, wait till someone's right. And then he put someone forward and said, will you do the cultural? I think this person's capable of doing the job. Now, he asked me, can I join the cultural? I want to see what it's about. I said, fine. So we met with this person. I thought they were aggressive and short and arrogant, right, in the process. They didn't display integrity or compassionate directness or empathy. And when the interview finished, he said to me, well, and I said, no, I don't want that person in my team. And if I'm honest with you, I think you're going to have a nightmare managing that person. And he said, oh, thank God. I said, what do you mean, thank God? He said, I thought you were going to make me hire them. I said, make you hire them. You brought them to me. And he said, yeah, but I'm behind in the plan. We need someone quickly, and I'm already 3 months behind. I thought it would act against me. And I said, you need to understand that I would rather you wait and got it right than bring in someone that's going to be a cancer in that office or disrupt your time. You're really valuable to me. That's why I'm paying you more than the people you're hiring, right? I don't want your time being sucked up managing this prick, right? And he understood. And he then took another 3 months before he brought anyone to me for a cultural, because he understood the value. The culture was real, right?
And I bet the next hire was a good
excellent.
One. Yeah.
Yeah. So there were ways and means of doing that, which I think are really important. Now, I'm not an expert in culture, and I have got it wrong. And there will be the odd person in the company that says to you, well, I'm not happy with that person or this person, but it's impossible to get it right 100% of the time. All you can do is your best to get it right as often as possible and to identify when you've got it wrong as quickly as possible. Your team will value by your actions and your deeds whether or not you yourself live up to the company's culture, the cultural values. And if they see you letting that down, then they will feel let down.
Completely. Let's bring it back right to current day. So right now, there's a few very interesting, trending, topical news in the industry of licked.
Yeah.
So the NBA, Gymshark,
yeah,
and a number of other brands are having some troubles with a certain large social media named TikTok, all to do with your bread and butter.
Yeah.
What's going on?
So we spoke about on YouTube that you and I as individuals can get big enough on YouTube that one day YouTube says you now earn from every video, right? That doesn't happen on TikTok. There is no partner program. As a result, individuals can use any song they want on any video. When brands produce content, however, they are not entitled to use any song they want. And often when a brand creates content on TikTok or any short-form vertical platform, Instagram, YouTube Shorts, Snapchat, they will amplify that piece of content by having influencers who are individuals on TikTok promote that content or share that content, whatever it might be. And because those individuals can use any song, brands will say to them, well, you can use anything. But it's actually a paid branded campaign. TikTok provides brands a very small commercial music library. Hey, if you're doing something commercial on TikTok, like promoting your brand or selling products, here's the music we've licensed on your behalf that you can use without any interaction. But ultimately, brands either believe they can use any song they want or believe that individuals can use any song they want, even if they're being paid, those individuals.
And that's a get out of jail free card, right? You're a content creator, you can do what you want.
Correct. Or they're acting as bad actors and are willfully ignoring the law, right? And as a result, the music industry has started suing massive brands who have willfully or unknowingly, at scale, infringed music copyright from major label artists by using their music over and over again in boosted or paid media. Now, the music industry this is their modus operandi. The music industry will be informed very early on of a low-scale infringement of their copyrights. They'll look at it, like say there's new media developed, right? And they'll go, you're being infringed on AR or VR. And they'll go, there's not enough people there. Or the companies running it don't have any money yet. And they'll watch that infringement scale. And then when you get a huge amount of funding or you get huge growth in your business, they'll sue the pants off you. And then after they've sued the pants off you, they go, well, how do we create a legal framework for this to then scale going forwards? And they're at the litigious stage right now. So 14 NBA teams have been sued by major rights holders for misuse of their music on TikTok. Gymshark, I think, got sued. I think the number was about $60 million. Bang Energy, an energy drink in the States, got sued I think, don't quote me on this, but I think that caused them to go into administration and get acquired by Monster Energy.
Wow.
Don't know if that's the story, but that's what I've heard. Beastie Boys are suing Chili's, the massive restaurant chain in the States, for misuse of the music on TikTok. Now, if you're a brand, your pain point is, well, I tried to license the song and I called the label and I asked for a quote and they didn't respond. And the labels didn't used to respond because anything under 10 grand to them is not worth the hassle, right? But then the number of requests coming in got so voluminous, they thought, we should start quoting on this. And so they started quoting. And now it becomes a problem because once you quote something and it's in a spreadsheet, you start forecasting closed revenue. And their quote level was so high that they thought, well, even at a 10% close rate, we should be doing X amount per month. And you start missing budget. And they're missing budget, they're missing forecasts, because even though they're quoting, they end the quote by saying, by the way, that's just for our half of the rights. There are writers represented by publishers that you need to identify, and you need to clear all of that as well. Get quotes from all the other 5 companies involved in this song. And the brand will say, but the piece of content is going live on Friday. Well, that's up to you. And so nothing closed. So the brands that did try to act legally couldn't get a license. And we work with these major labels. And I said, look, I know who publishes your content. Because, by the way, the label would say, and I don't know who those people are you need to contact. I don't have that data, right? And so I said, well, I do. We started clearing your catalogue for the UGC platform. Why don't we build a brand platform as well? And when the brand finds a song they want to use on that platform and they submit request license, it will notify all of the rights holders simultaneously. So the moment you're hearing about it, everyone else that needs to approve has already heard about it as well.
And this is exactly what Licked is building right now.
Correct. And we just did our first license on it. So we've signed the top 6 publishers in the world. We've signed Universal Music with the #1 label group in the world. And I'm expecting 2 or 3 of the other major labels on board soon. I can't say who they are, but people can guess. And already that platform delivered its first license for Boohoo. Nigh on, well, I won't say the amount, but significantly higher amount of usages and therefore fees than we ever expected on the platform. But we've proven an end-to-end positive engagement with the platform with a global brand.
Amazing.
And the rights holders are like, wow, it worked. Right, and now we aim at scaling the catalogue on it and scaling the use cases of it. And we're speaking to some of the biggest brands in the world about getting them on board. But it's also for agencies and people that represent brands as well as brands themselves.
Yeah, amazing. So took a few years to get the UGC creator side of Licked working, monetizing, and now you have that playbook still improving, but pretty good, pretty strong. A few years later, now we've introduced the brand side. So now those brands and those creators, both who want access to music, I said to you off camera, music makes everything better. It's true. Everything is better with music, right?
Yeah.
Absolutely everything you do in life. So therefore, you've got 2 of the biggest users of music, of published content out there, are going to be supplied by Licked.
Yeah.
Let's look ahead then. 2025.
Yeah.
What does that look like for Licked and Paul?
We want to scale the brand platform. Like I said, we just did the first license on it. There's about 1,000 songs on there. I want to get that into 6 figures, so it's meaningful and statistically significant. And then there's business development to be done. Look, what I can say is this, without giving away too much of where we might be. I am only interested in new media, right? And using technology to facilitate the licensing of music into that new media. Artists' careers are short. Monetization for artists has gone down over a period of time, right? On digital platforms. And it is negligent of the music industry or companies like Licked to find potentially untapped revenue streams and not enable them. So, where we see a gap in a market that requires a micro licensing commercial model, a brand new grant of rights by the industry, and then proprietary technology to enable the facilitation of all of those things, I get turned on. And that's Licked's MO, right? I say to my team, if it doesn't meet those 3 criteria, we don't build it. We're not the right people to build it, right? I don't want to build automated licensing for film and television. It's still going to take weeks. There'll be less and less automation as you go up. When you look at the new media and what's developing, then you can say, these untapped revenue streams. It's going to require this. The music industry hasn't solved a problem itself for decades, right? They didn't build cassettes. They didn't create CDs. They sued the arse off of Napster. They resisted iTunes and they resisted Spotify, right? They aren't one cohesive unit. They are tens of thousands of independently owned businesses that have different interests. So they can't solve their own problems. Our job is to identify where the next opportunity is, right? Which is obviously a problem for the music industry, and say, hey, we've got to solve for it, and everyone in the value chain is a winner. We have created the beta of a background music player for the metaverse. I can't tell you that we will focus on it in 2025, and I know that when we built it in 2023, we were too early, but that's okay. It's in our pocket. But I believe that there's a huge use case for that. When I sat in reception waiting to come in here today, they're playing mainstream music. It's because it's an assembly area. It's a meeting point. When you walk into Zara or Topshop, well, Topshop's gone now, but any major retailer, there is music playing that you recognise. The statistics are well known for what choosing the right music can do to dwell time in an environment and purchase behaviour. Everywhere I've just mentioned, including this venue, pays the UK Performance Rights Organisation, the PRS, for the right to be able to do that in England or the UK. In the States, they pay a whole other organisation. In France, they pay their local one. In Germany, they pay Gamer. There is no use case for a global performance grant of rights. Does that make sense?
It does, yeah.
Now, a venue in the metaverse, be it educational or for revelry, recreational, will simultaneously, A, not have a country-specific performance rights organisation to go to, and B, will need one, a global one, because it will simultaneously have visitors and customers from 200 territories. So, we drafted the rights. We got rights holders to grant us the rights. And we created the commercial model. And then, what was the last piece I said? Proprietary technology, right? So, how do you... If we were playing music in here, I would hear it when I opened the door and walked in because I've got ears. And then if I left the room and closed the door behind me, because there's walls, I would stop hearing it. Well, there were no ears and no walls in the metaverse. So we built a player that essentially ingests the blueprint of a virtual world, recognizes the coordinates of your venue, and then tracks tokens to see in the environment, i.e. avatars, to see if they enter or cross your threshold.
Amazing.
And if they enter or cross your threshold, it delivers the playlist that you've selected in real time, i.e. you'll hear the same second of the same song that everyone else in that environment is being delivered as if they had a stereo in the store, right? And when you leave that venue and your avatar, your token crosses the threshold, as if you've opened the door and walked out, it will stop delivering that to whatever device you're listening on. I think there's a massive use case for that. Huge. And I'm excited about it, but I'm not focusing my team on it just yet because I think the metaverse had a big buzz and has dropped off a little bit, but I think the use cases will become
more and more apparent,
more ubiquitous, and then people will recognize that problem needs solving.
Yeah, for sure. And it's nice to have that tech in the back pocket as well.
Absolutely.
So my quick fire question to you, Paul, is as a founder, which percentage do you believe it's more important to have luck along the way than it is versus skill or talent?
You can't have luck without skill or talent. So skill and talent, right? What I mean by that is luck is where hard work and preparation meets opportunity, right? It's only lucky for you if when the opportunity comes, you're able to take advantage of it. And if you don't have skill and talent, you can't take advantage of it. So start with the skill and the hard work and the talent, and then you'll find yourself getting luckier and luckier and luckier.
Love it.
Yeah.
And great answer. Paul,
Thank you.
You have been my everyday founder. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.